On my granddaughter's 8th birthday, she received a beautiful antique porcelain doll as a gift. At first, she looked so happy, then froze. "Grandpa, why are the doll's eyes sparkling strangely?" I leaned in closer and went pale with fear. I didn't shout. I quietly collected evidence and called a lawyer. 3 days later, the police knocked on their door. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching this from. If you're a grandparent, parent, or anyone who loves a child, you need to hear this story. It could save someone you love. 3 weeks later, my daughter-in-law was being let out in handcuffs. But it all started with a doll. I remember that Saturday afternoon, Sophie's 8th birthday party in my backyard in Myers Park. The kind of day Dorothy would have loved. Clear Carolina sky, hydrangeas blooming along the fence she'd planted, and our granddaughter turning 8, surrounded by children who still believed the world was good. I'd set up a bounce house, hired a face painter, baked Sophie's favorite strawberry cake from Dorothy's recipe. The house smelled like vanilla and sugar. Jennifer and Chris Adams came with their son Lucas, along with 2 other neighborhood kids. They ran circles around my lawn, shrieking with that pitch only 8-year-olds can achieve. Marcus stood near the patio, scrolling through his phone with the glazed expression of a man anywhere but present. My son, 42 and still couldn't look me in the eye. Vanessa was everywhere, pouring lemonade, adjusting party hats, laughing with that bright, performative warmth that always felt 1 degree too warm. The perfect mother, the perfect daughter-in-law. I'd learned not to trust perfect. Around 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. A delivery driver held an elegant white box with a silver ribbon. The card read, in Carol Martinez's precise cursive, "To Sophie Love, Grandma, Carol, and Grandpa, Robert." Vanessa appeared at my shoulder. "Oh, my parents couldn't make it today, but they sent this." She shot Marcus a quick, pointed look. He didn't look up. Sophie tore into the box with pure joy. Inside was a porcelain doll, antique-style Victorian dress, with glass eyes that caught the light. "She's beautiful." Sophie lifted it carefully, tilting it back and forth. Then her face scrunched. "Grandpa, why do Dolly's eyes sparkle funny?" I leaned closer. At first I thought it was just the light. Then I saw it embedded in the right eye, barely visible, was a tiny black lens. A camera. My chest tightened. The party sounds faded. Children laughing, adults chatting, muted by the roar of blood in my ears. This wasn't a gift. This was surveillance. I kept my face neutral. Decades of teaching had trained me not to show surprise. "Let Grandpa take a closer look, sweetheart," I said, gently taking the doll. "You go play with Lucas." Sophie ran off. I straightened, cradling the doll like evidence at a crime scene. Vanessa watched me smile, still in place. "Everything okay, Daniel?" "Fine," I said, just checking for loose parts. "You know these old-fashioned toys?" "Of course." Her voice was honey. Her eyes were ice. I walked through the kitchen, past photos of Dorothy, into my study. Locked the door. I didn't panic. I didn't shout. I didn't call police or confront anyone. I did what a retired professor does best. I gathered evidence. But first I had to understand what I was dealing with. An hour later, the party wound down. Parents collected their sugar-crashed children. Vanessa and Marcus left with polite goodbyes and empty promises. Sophie hugged me good night, still glowing from cake and presents, and I tucked her into the guest room where she stayed every weekend. She fell asleep happy. I went back to my study and stared at that doll. After everyone left and Sophie was tucked into bed, I locked myself in my study with that doll. The lamp cast shadows across my desk as I set it down carefully. I retrieved my magnifying glass, the same one I'd used for 40 years grading exams, and examined those glass eyes. Right eye camera lens. Professional grade wireless transmission. I could see the tiny aperture, the ring of circuitry behind the pupil. I turned the doll over, unscrewed the base with a letter opener. Inside, nestled in the stuffing, was a GPS tracker the size of a quarter. Battery operated. Active. I took photos. Evidence isn't worth much if you can't document it. This wasn't paranoia. For weeks I'd felt watched in my own home. That prickling sensation when someone's observing you. I'd chalked it up to age, to living alone, to grief after Dorothy died. I'd been wrong. The memory hit me 3 weeks ago, the incident that started all this. I'd come home early from the hardware store. Voices upstairs. Vanessa's voice from Sophie's room. I climbed the stairs quietly. Old floorboards know how to keep secrets. When people ask about Grandpa's sweetheart, Vanessa said, "Syrup sweet," you can say he forgets things sometimes. Okay. I stopped in the hallway, just out of sight. But he doesn't. Sophie's voice was small, confused. "He's getting older. He might need special help soon. It's nothing to worry about." I should have confronted her. Walked in, asked what the hell she was doing. But I'm a researcher. When you suspect something, you document first. So I pulled out my phone and started recording. Since that day, I'd captured hours. Vanessa on the phone when she thought I was napping. The papers are almost ready. Once he's placed, we can start the process. Another time, he won't fight it. He's too old to understand. I told myself I was overreacting. The doll proved otherwise. I sat back, the weight settling over me. This wasn't concern for an aging father-in-law. This was about my house, the one Dorothy and I bought in 1985, now worth $280,000. My retirement savings, $85,000 from decades of teaching. My investments, another $35,000. $400,000. That's what I was worth on paper. That's what was worth destroying me for. Dorothy's voice echoed in my memory. Trust your gut, Daniel. Your gut's smarter than most people's brains. I looked at the doll again. Its painted smile seemed sinister now. The pieces fell into place. The coaching, the surveillance, the mysterious papers. They probably had a nursing home picked out already, somewhere cheap. And I had what days, maybe a week before whatever they planned came to fruition, I couldn't go to Marcus. My son had made his choice today standing on that patio, while his wife dismantled his father's life. I couldn't go to friends. David Sullivan would believe me, but what could he do? No. I needed someone who'd seen this before. Someone who knew how to fight it. Someone who understood that elder abuse doesn't always look like bruises. Sometimes it looks like concern. Like a loving family just trying to help. I needed a lawyer who specialized in protection from my own family. At 2 a.m, I'd searched elder law, attorney Charlotte N.C. family exploitation. One name kept appearing, Elizabeth Warner. I called her emergency line at dawn. Sunday morning, most people were at church or sleeping off Saturday night. I was sitting in a law office downtown watching Elizabeth Warner read through my evidence like she was grading a dissertation. She'd agreed to meet on a Sunday. That told me something. The doll sat on her mahogany desk between us, its glass eyes reflecting the overhead lights. She examined it without touching, leaning in close with reading glasses perched on her nose. How long have you suspected? She asked. 3 weeks since I knew for certain. Longer if I'm honest with myself. She played my recordings on her computer volume low. Vanessa's voice filled the office. When people ask about Grandpa, you can say he forgets things sometimes. Elizabeth's expression didn't change. She'd heard this before. When the recordings ended, she looked at me directly. Mr. Crawford, has anyone suggested you might need assistance? Memory care. My daughter-in-law. Subtle comments about my age. Questions about whether I remembered appointments, took my medicine. My granddaughter started asking if I was okay, if I needed help with things. Coached questions. Yes. Elizabeth pulled her keyboard closer. I specialize in elder abuse cases. Financial exploitation through guardianship fraud. What you're describing is textbook. Her fingers moved across the keys. I checked court filings this morning after you called. Guardianship petition was filed 10 days ago. My stomach dropped. 10 days ago. Before the birthday party. Before the doll. She turned her monitor toward me. Legal documents filled the screen. My name at the top. Nursing home admission papers. Already drafted, already filed with Mecklenburg County Probate Court. I scanned the documents. Everything looked official. Professional. My signature forged on 3 different forms. Attorney of record is Richard Thornton. Elizabeth said, clicking to another page. Recognize the name? No. She pulled up more files. He's filed 3 similar cases this year. All involve sudden guardianship claims against elderly individuals with substantial assets. All 3 families liquidated estates within 60 days of placement. She showed me a photo from a legal newsletter corporate lawyer, mid-40s, expensive suit, shark eyes. Something clicked. I've seen him. Elizabeth's eyebrows raised. Vanessa's phone. When it's charging on the kitchen counter, sometimes messages pop up. Texts from RT. I thought they were work-related. She's in pharmaceutical sales. But there were photos, too. Restaurant dinners. I assumed client meetings. Were they alone in these photos? I closed my eyes, pulling up the memory. Yes, always just the 2 of them. Wine glasses. Candlelight. My voice went flat. Not business dinners. Elizabeth leaned back in her chair. Mr. Crawford, I believe your daughter-in-law is having an affair with the attorney, attempting to institutionalize you. This isn't just exploitation. This is conspiracy to commit fraud, possibly worse. The office felt smaller suddenly. Worse how? Once you're declared incompetent and placed in a facility, she and Thornton would have full control of your assets as your legal guardians. Your house savings, investments. $400,000, you said. Give or take. They could liquidate everything in weeks, and you'd be in a locked memory care unit with no legal standing to stop them. She paused. People in those situations don't tend to live long. especially when their guardians have financial incentive to minimize care costs. She was talking about murder. Polite, legal, slow murder. Elizabeth must have seen something in my face. We're going to fight this. Here's what happens next. You file a police report about the surveillance equipment. We document everything. The recordings, the coaching, all of it. Emergency hearing is in 2 weeks. Fast for the court system, but not fast enough to stop them from escalating. Escalating how? They know the papers are filed. They'll create incidents. Make you look unstable, forgetful, dangerous. Stage something that requires police involvement or hospital admission. They need evidence for the hearing. She looked at me hard. The next 2 weeks, be careful. Be visible. Don't be alone with Vanessa or anyone connected to her. I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead. She was right about the escalation. It came the very next day. Monday afternoon, Vanessa called with a proposition that made my blood run cold. I'd spent the morning filing the police report. The officer had cataloged the doll. The GPS tracker listened to my recordings with flat professionalism. Case number issued. Someone from fraud would follow up. I was making lunch when my phone rang. Daniel, hi. Vanessa's voice was bright musical. Sophie's been asking about another celebration, just the two of us. A girls' day for her birthday week. I gripped the phone tighter. When Alma out today, I'll pick her up at 2. We'll do something special, and you can get her at 5. I'll text the address. 3 hours notice. Every instinct screamed trap. But if I refused, I'd look paranoid. Exactly what they wanted to prove. Sophie's napping. Perfect. See you at 2. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen listening to dead air. Elizabeth's warning echoed. They'll create incidents. At 1:30, Marcus's truck pulled into my driveway. He climbed out like a man walking to execution. Just checking in, he said, making sure you're okay. We stood in the doorway, silence heavy between us. Then quietly, Dad, just be careful today, okay? I studied his face, saw guilt carved into every line, fear in his fidgeting hands. What should I be careful of? He opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head. I have to go. My son knew something. Not everything, but enough to carry guilt. Just not enough spine to stop it. At 2 o'clock, Vanessa arrived in her white Lexus. Sophie hugged me goodbye. See you at 5, Grandpa. You will, sweetheart. I promise. I watched them drive away, Sophie waving from the back window. Then I pulled out the GPS watch I'd bought yesterday. Small pink, marketed as a kid's safety device. Tested the SOS button. I texted Sophie's phone. Sweetheart, Grandpa has a new watch for you. Ask Mom to help put it on. Press the red button if you need me for any reason. I'll always come. 2 minutes later, Sophie, wearing the watch, thumbs up, beaming. Vanessa probably thought it was sweet. Indulgent grandfather spoiling his granddaughter. She had no idea. An hour crawled by. I couldn't focus on anything. At 3:15, my phone buzzed. 4929 Industrial Park Way. See you at 5. I pulled up the address immediately. Satellite view showed low buildings at Charlotte's industrial edge. I clicked the specific address. Industrial Park Way Complex. Status vacant. For lease. No arcade. No restaurant. No place for a child's birthday celebration. Just empty buildings where nobody goes on a Monday afternoon. My hands went cold. Elizabeth's voice. They'll stage something that requires police involvement. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't waiting until 5. I arrived at 4:30. 30 minutes early. The parking lot was completely empty. Industrial Parkway stretched before me like a ghost town. Building 4929 stood hollow-eyed windows, broken weeds pushing through cracks in the pavement. A faded for lease banner flapped in the breeze. No cars, no decorations, no Sophie. I walked the perimeter, every door locked, every window dark. The building hadn't seen life in months. My chest tightened. I called Vanessa, straight to voicemail. Called again, voicemail. Texted, I'm at the address. Where are you? No response. Called Sophie's phone. No answer. Panic rose in my throat, but I forced it down. Panic makes you stupid. Then my phone buzzed. Not a call. An alert. SOS. GPS watch activated. Location pinged 847 Oakmont Drive. Carol and Robert Martinez's house. Other side of Charlotte. 25 minutes away. My hands shook as I dialed 911. My 8-year-old granddaughter just activated an emergency alert. I was given a false pickup location. She's at her grandmother's house, but I believe she's in distress. Sir, are you the legal guardian? Yes, and there's an active guardianship case, elder abuse. My attorney is Elizabeth Warner. I gave her number. The dispatcher's tone shifted. Officers are being dispatched. Do not enter the residence until police arrive. I was already running to my car. I drove faster than I had in 20 years. hands white-knuckled on the wheel. Every red light felt like an eternity. The address pulled closer on my GPS, 15 minutes 10:05. A patrol car pulled up as I did. Officer Matthew Cooper, young professional hand resting near his belt. You, Mr. Crawford. The SOS came from this address. My granddaughter's inside. I was sent to the wrong location. We approached together. The Martinez house looked normal. Neat lawn flower beds, American flag by the door, the kind of place that hides its rot under fresh paint. I rang the bell. Carol Martinez answered, smile sweet as arsenic. Daniel, and an officer. What a lovely surprise. Ma'am, we received an emergency alert from a minor at this address. Oh, that's just a misunderstanding. Sophie was playing with a toy. Then Sophie appeared behind her in the hallway. She saw me and her face crumpled. She pushed past Carol, ran straight into my arms, sobbing. Grandpa, you came. Grandma, Carol said you forgot me, that you weren't coming. I held her like I'd never let go. I would never forget you, sweetheart. Never. Vanessa emerged from the back room, smile frozen in place. This is all a misunderstanding, officer. We were having a party and Daniel got the address confused. Officer Cooper's expression didn't change. Ma'am, he showed me the text you sent. This wasn't the address. Robert Martinez appeared defensive. Our daughter can take her child wherever she wants. Cooper ignored him. I need to speak with the child, alone. He took Sophie aside, voice gentle. I watched her nod, wipe her eyes, speak quietly. When he came back, his jaw was tight. Sophie says she was brought here unexpectedly. Says they kept asking her questions about you, whether you forget to feed her, whether you get confused. She felt scared. That's when she pressed the button. Carol's smile finally cracked. We were just talking. I'll need statements from everyone. Cooper pulled out his notepad. Mr. Crawford, you'll need to come to the station tomorrow to file a formal report. No arrests. Not yet. But the paper trail was growing. I took Sophie home. She fell asleep in the car, exhausted from fear and tears. Back home, I carried her inside, tucked her into bed. She didn't wake up. Then I went to my study and synced her GPS watch to my computer. The device had logged her location every 30 seconds. I could see the whole route from my house to the Martinez residence, never anywhere near Industrial Parkway. But there was something else, a folder labeled Audio Backup. I clicked it, ambient recording. The watch had been capturing sound, automatically storing it in the cloud. I put on headphones and pressed play. Sophie finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying. I sat at my computer and opened the audio files from her watch. Alone in my study, headphones on, I clicked play on the file time-stamped 3:47 p.m. First few minutes, ambient noise movement, fabric rustling. Then Vanessa's voice, crystal clear. Okay, Sophie, let's practice again. This is important. Sophie's voice so small, I don't want to practice anymore. Carol Martinez. Sweetheart, we've talked about this. Grandpa needs help. Real help. And you're the only one who can make people listen. My chest tightened. Vanessa, when the social worker asks, and she will ask, what are you going to say about Grandpa? That he forgets things. Be specific. Say Grandpa forgets to make me meals. Sometimes I have to remind him. Sophie crying now. But that's not true. He always makes my breakfast. Carol. Sophie, listen to me. Do you love your grandpa? Yes. Then you need to help him. If you don't tell people he needs care, something bad could happen. What if he falls and no one's there? What if he forgets his medicine and gets very sick? Sophie sobbing. I don't want Grandpa to get sick. Vanessa, then you have to help us help him. Say it. My grandpa can't take care of himself anymore? Sophie, barely audible. My grandpa can't take care of himself anymore. I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking. This was worse than surveillance. This was psychological torture. Of a child. My child. I forced myself to keep listening. Vanessa, good girl. And when they ask where Grandpa should live, Carol, tell them Grandpa should be somewhere with nurses who can watch him all the time. But I want him home with me. Vanessa's voice turned cold sharp. Sophie, you're being very difficult. Do you want something bad to happen to Grandpa? Because if you don't help us, no, I'll say it. I'll say whatever you want. Then Robert Martinez's voice, distant. She's got the watch on. Should we? Vanessa, it's fine. It's just a kid's GPS thing. Daniel's too old to figure out the audio function anyway. I felt rage so pure it turned cold. Sound of doorbell. That must be the officer. Sophie, remember Grandpa got confused about the address. That's all. I stopped playback. Sat in the dark. My granddaughter's terrified voice echoing in my head. The study door opened. Marcus stood there pale as death. Dad, I needed to talk. I can't sleep. I can't. He saw my face. What happened? I handed him the headphones without a word, restarted the recording. I watched his face as he listened, watched the color drain, watched horror dawn in his eyes. He tore off the headphones. Oh my God, Dad, I knew she wanted you in a home. I knew about the lawyer, but I didn't know not Sophie. Not using Sophie like this, not threatening her. You knew? My son collapsed into the chair across from me. I found texts between her and Thornton 6 months ago. The affair. Messages about your estate, about guardianship being lucrative. I confronted her. She said if I divorced her, or told anyone she'd take Sophie and I'd never see her again. His voice cracked. I thought if I just stayed quiet, played along, Sophie wouldn't get hurt. I thought, you thought wrong. I know. He looked up, eyes red. I have everything. All the texts, emails, hotel receipts I kept as insurance. I was too afraid to use them. His voice hardened. But after today, after hearing what she did to Sophie, he stood up, shoulders back for the first time in years. I'll testify against her, against Thornton. All of them. Sophie deserves better than a mother who'd use her as a weapon, and you deserve better than a son who was too cowardly to act. My son finally found his spine. But we had 9 days until the emergency hearing. 9 days for Vanessa and her conspirators to realize we had evidence. 9 days for them to prepare their defense, or try something even more desperate. I called Elizabeth Warner. We had a case to build, and not much time to do it. Wednesday morning, Elizabeth's conference room looked like a war room. And that's exactly what it was. 2 days since the SOS incident. 2 days since I'd heard my granddaughter tortured with lies. 2 days since Marcus chose a side. 7 days until the hearing. The table was covered, documents, photographs, recordings. Elizabeth stood at the head like a general. Marcus sat beside me, eyes red coffee untouched. He'd moved into my guest room. Let's inventory what we have, Elizabeth said. She pointed to each piece. Evidence 1, the doll. Police custody. Forensics confirmed active transmission to an IP address registered to Thornton's law office. Marcus flinched. 2, GPS tracker. Same IP address. 3 Daniels recordings. Vanessa coaching Sophie 3 weeks ago. 4 Sophie's watch audio. Full coaching session with threats. 5. She looked at Marcus. Your contribution. Marcus pulled out a folder, hands shaking. Text between Vanessa and Thornton. 6 months. They discuss when the old man is placed. An asset liquidation timeline. He slid printouts across. My life reduced to dollar signs. Hotel receipts. Our joint card. 15 hotels, 6 months. 6. The guardianship petition. Filed 10 days before Sophie's birthday. Nursing home papers pre-signed by Vanessa. David Sullivan arrived, my old university colleague. Known you 40 years, Daniel, David said. Your mind's sharp as ever. This claim is absurd. Elizabeth made notes. You'll testify to competency. Tuesday chess games, his memory independent living. Every Tuesday for 3 years, David said. He beats me 2 out of 3. Man with dementia doesn't play like that. Elizabeth pulled up her laptop. I investigated Thornton. 3 similar cases in 18 months. Elderly clients with assets, all suddenly incompetent. All had guardianship transferred to family who liquidated estates within 90 days. How is he still licensed? Marcus asked. Victims died or were too isolated to complain. Families profited, stayed quiet. Her jaw tightened. Until now, she pulled up another file. Carol and Robert Martinez. Death certificate. Nursing home records. Financial statements. Robert's mother died in a nursing home in 2015. Placed suddenly after Robert and Carol obtained guardianship. Her estate was $180,000. Within 1 year, completely depleted. Adult Protective Services investigated, but statute of limitations expired. Marcus went white. Vanessa learned this from her parents. Institutionalize, isolate, liquidate, Elizabeth said. Their playbook, done successfully before. The room went quiet. Elizabeth outlined strategy, present surveillance evidence premeditation, play recordings, child manipulation. Marcus testifies about affair and conspiracy. David testifies competency. Financial expert testifies Daniel manages $400,000 perfectly. She looked at us. Thornton will argue Daniel's declining recordings misunderstood. Loving family concern for welfare. We prove conspiracy for financial gain using a child as weapon. Will I lose, Sophie? Marcus asked quietly. You're cooperating, protecting your daughter. Court will see that. Joint custody Daniel primary until Vanessa's evaluated. And Vanessa, best case supervised visitation. Worst criminal charges conspiracy, elder abuse, child endangerment. Elizabeth looked at all of us. We have them. But desperate people do desperate things. Next 7 days, stay visible, stay public. document everything. They can't manufacture incidents with witnesses. I wanted to believe we were safe, but I'd underestimated them before. I wouldn't make that mistake again. Friday morning, I walked into the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, with my son beside me and my lawyer ahead of me. The hearing that would decide my freedom lasted 3 hours. It should have lasted 3 minutes. Judge Karen Anderson presided, 60 years old, steel gray hair, 30 years on the bench. She'd seen everything. I hoped that meant she'd see through this. The courtroom was formal wood-paneled American flag behind the bench. Vanessa sat at the petitioner's table with Richard Thornton, who looked every bit the corporate shark, expensive suit, confident posture, practiced smile. Carol and Robert Martinez sat in the gallery looking smug, like they'd already won. Elizabeth had told me Sophie was with a court-appointed advocate in another room. The judge had ordered she wouldn't be present for this. Thornton stood for his opening statement. Your Honor, but this is a tragic case of a beloved family member whose cognitive decline has reached dangerous levels. Mr. Crawford, 70, lives alone, exhibits memory lapses, confusion, and inability to care for his granddaughter, who frequently stays with him. The family, out of love and concern, seeks protective guardianship and appropriate placement. He presented his evidence. Vanessa took the stand, poised, tearful, perfect. Dad forgets to feed Sophie. Last month he left the stove on. He gets confused about appointments. Carol Martinez testified next. We've noticed concerning changes. He accused us of surveilling him, paranoid delusions. Character witnesses. Martinez friends I'd never met. Seems forgetful, not as sharp. Thornton gestured compassionately. The family has identified an excellent memory care facility where Mr. Crawford can receive proper supervision. Elizabeth stood. Objection, Your Honor. May I present evidence before the court rules? Judge Anderson looked at her over reading glasses. Proceed, Ms. Warner. Elizabeth walked to the evidence table. Exhibit A doll given to Mr. Crawford's granddaughter on her 8th birthday. She held up the porcelain doll. Even from across the room you could see the glass eyes. A technical expert took the stand, young woman, professional matter of fact. This camera was active, transmitting wirelessly to an IP address I traced to the law offices of Thornton and Associates. The courtroom stirred. Judge Anderson's expression didn't change, but her pen stopped moving. Exhibit B GPS tracking device removed from the doll's base, also transmitting to the same IP address. Elizabeth turned to face Thornton. Your Honor, this isn't concern. This is surveillance. Mr. Crawford was being monitored in his own home by the very attorney, now seeking to institutionalize him. Thornton stood quickly. Those items were gifts. We had no knowledge. Then let's hear what Mr. Crawford's granddaughter experienced. Elizabeth nodded to the bailiff. He pressed play on the courtroom's audio system. The room went silent. Sophie's small voice filled the space. I don't want to practice any more. Vanessa's voice, cold and clear. When the social worker asks, what will you say about Grandpa? That he forgets things. Be specific. Say, Grandpa forgets to make me meals. Sophie crying, but that's not true. He always makes breakfast. Carol's voice, if you don't tell people he needs care, something bad could happen. Sophie sobbing, I don't want Grandpa to get sick. Vanessa, then say it. My grandpa can't take care of himself anymore. Sophie broken, my grandpa can't take care of himself anymore. 4 minutes. It felt like hours. Gasps from the gallery. Someone whispered, oh my God. Judge Anderson's face turned to stone. Vanessa gripped the armrests of her chair, knuckles white. Thornton tried to maintain composure, but his hands shook. Carol Martinez looked like she wanted to disappear into her seat. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. Judge Anderson's eyes moved slowly from Vanessa to Thornton, to the Martinez parents. 30 years of seeing lies, and this was among the worst. She spoke voice level. Ms. Warner, call your next witness. Elizabeth stood. The petitioner's son, Marcus Crawford, Your Honor. Every head in the courtroom turned as my son stood and walked to the witness stand. Marcus walked to the witness stand like a man heading to confession. In a way, he was. Sworn in hand on Bible, he faced Elizabeth. Mr. Crawford, tell the court what you know. Your Honor, I've known about my wife's affair with Mr. Thornton for 6 months. I have texts discussing my father's estate guardianship as a financial opportunity, timeline for asset liquidation. He presented phone records, hotel receipts. Elizabeth read messages aloud. Once the old man is placed, how quickly can we move? Guardianship gives us full control. Liquidate within 60 days. Finally free. We can start our life together. The courtroom erupted. Judge Anderson's gavel cracked once. Marcus continued, I was afraid of losing my daughter, but after hearing what my wife did coaching Sophie with threats, using a child as a weapon, I realized who I should have protected Sophie from. I was a coward. I'm here to make it right. Thornton stood. Your Honor, hearsay. Sit down, Mr. Thornton. David Sullivan testified next. 40 years knowing Daniel. Sharp mind. Chess every Tuesday. No decline. Financial expert. Daniel managed $400,000 perfectly. No incompetence. Elizabeth presented Martinez history. Robert's mother institutionalized estate depleted. Pattern of behavior. Vanessa was called forward. Mrs. Crawford, did you send the doll knowing it contained surveillance? My parents sent it. I didn't. Your phone accessed the camera feed 47 times in 3 days. Vanessa crumbled. We were concerned. Concerned enough to threaten a child coordinate with your lover to steal your father-in-law's savings. Silence. Judge Anderson removed her glasses. I've heard enough. The ruling. Petition for guardianship is denied. Mr. Crawford has demonstrated complete competency. I'm referring this to the district attorney for elder abuse conspiracies to commit fraud, child manipulation, illegal surveillance. State Bar will investigate Mr. Thornton for ethical violations and criminal conspiracy. Restraining order Vanessa Crawford Carroll and Robert Martinez. No contact with Sophie or Daniel Crawford. Emergency custody of Sophie granted to Daniel Crawford. Marcus Crawford will work with family court. Vanessa's parental rights suspended. Her final words, elder abuse is a crime. Using a child to perpetrate it is unconscionable. This court will not tolerate it. 3 months later, Richard Thornton. Disbarred facing criminal charges. Vanessa lost all custody. Supervised visitation 2 hours monthly used once. Carol and Robert Martinez under criminal investigation. Restraining order permanent. Marcus joint custody granted. Rebuilding relationships. Filed for divorce. Daniel full control of estate. Primary guardian for Sophie. Sophie, in therapy, healing, thriving with Grandpa. Final scene. 3 months after the hearing, I stood in Dorothy's rose garden with Sophie. Grandpa, some kid said you went too far against Grandma Vanessa. Did you? I knelt to her level. No, sweetheart. I went exactly far enough. Sometimes people try to take what isn't theirs, your home, your freedom, your family. When that happens, you don't go quietly. You stand up. You fight. And if you're lucky and have people who love you, you win. Like you and me. Exactly like you and me. They tried to steal my life, my dignity, my granddaughter. They weaponized an innocent child and built a case on lies. But truth has a way of coming out. And when it does, justice isn't going too far. It's going exactly far enough. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. Looking back at these past months, I see how close I came to losing everything that mattered. Not the house or the money. I mean Sophie. I nearly let pride and the belief that family handles family problems cost me my granddaughter. God gave me warning signs, that camera in the doll's eye, the coaching sessions I overheard Marcus's conflicted silences. I could have ignored them all, convinced myself I was being paranoid. That's what they counted on. In Grandpa stories like mine, silence is the weapon predators use most effectively. Don't be like I almost was. Don't wait until a child activates an SOS button to act on your gut. When you see manipulation, document it immediately. When you hear lies being planted in a child's mind, record every word. When family members exploit vulnerability for money, understand that God expects us to protect the innocent, even when it tears a family apart. The lesson I learned isn't comfortable sometimes. Loving your family means standing against them in court. These grandpa stories aren't always about cookies and wisdom. Sometimes they're about survival and protecting the next generation from those who should love them most. Marcus found his courage. Elizabeth fought the system. David stood witness. Sophie's safe now because I stopped treating this like a family disagreement and started treating it like the crime it was. God doesn't promise easy roads. He promises the strength to walk difficult ones. I walked mine and I'd do it again. If this story resonates with you, please share it. Comment below with your thoughts. And if you believe these grandpa stories matter, subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing awareness to elder abuse and family manipulation.